This is the question and answer period that we have on this show, and I just want to really invite you to send in your questions. You don't have to attach your name to it or anything. Just ask a question, and I'll be happy to answer it in this segment of the show. We don't always have Q&A on every show, but every other show we do. So if you want to do that, go to forrelationshiphelp.com/submit, and you can submit your question there. So today's question is from a person who is having trouble with her husband. And this is an anonymous question, and she wrote, "What first steps do you recommend after ending a long-term marriage to a hijackal? I'm still in shock and struggling with self-condemnation. Also, my husband enlisted our young adult son to pressure me to resume the marriage. Both of them blame me, and their diatribes make my head spin. My son was cold as a winter breeze until I reluctantly agreed to consider reconciliation. I set a boundary, but he bulldozed through it. What can I do to stand firm and regain self-respect considering my son's disapproval of me? Yes, you're right, the family dynamics are sick. Thanks, Dr. Shaler." Well, I'm going to take this apart in pieces. Her first question was, what first steps do you recommend after ending a long-term marriage to a hijackal? Well, always, if you didn't do it before you left, or even if you did, continue with it. You must keep doing your own work. Finding out, all right, what do I need to heal from? How did this happen? What part of my early life caused me to find this acceptable for whatever length of time that marriage was? Spend no time beating yourself up. Just find out, why was this acceptable to me? What didn't I see? What wasn't I willing to look at? Did I deny things for a long time? Or was I raised to believe that if only I were better, more passionate, more compassionate, more patient, more kind, more loving, more nurturing, less disapproving, less demanding, whatever it is that you thought you could do about yourself that would change the behavior expectations of a hijackal, forget about it. They are absolutely in need of being in control and having power over you. So when you have left that, and big applause for that, yay. When you've decided that's the best thing for you and you've accomplished it, that's great, because it is a step in the direction of your healing, and certainly a step in the direction of saying yes to yourself. That you deserve to be in a place where you're not walking on eggshells, you're not second-guessing yourself, and you're not concerned with losing your sanity. So a big round of applause for having left. And it's not that I don't believe we should try hard in marriage. Not for 1 minute. I believe we do have to do our work. We have to do our own work. We often have to go and get help as a couple because, after all, we're bringing two entire backgrounds together. And it's not always easy. And people who really care about themselves do get help. But if you come to the place where you realize you're with an incalcitrant hijackal, it probably is time to move on, and you've done that. So the first steps I recommend after ending a long-term marriage to a hijackal is to breathe, to just get used to that sense of there's no one looking over my shoulder. I do not have to be hypervigilant. I can run through the house like a banshee if I want, and nobody is going to have anything to say about it. And I am free to be myself. Something that you haven't been free to be for a long time. There was always someone who wanted you to be a little bit different and a little bit more different, and you could never please. You could never do enough, because the whole game with the hijackal is withholding approval. So no matter what you did, you couldn't be good enough. And then you brought up the idea of your husband enlisting your young adult son to pressure you to resume the marriage. Well, hijackals do that. Remember, hijackals don't have much love for you, but they do have a lot of uses for you, and they will use their children, and here's an example of that, using the young adult son to pressure mom into returning. Probably in that pressure, there was a lot of guilting mom into returning too. That's nasty. That shows that what you've called your young adult son is no, he may have been the size of an adult, but he wasn't an emotional grown-up, or he wouldn't have colluded in these games with dad. Although, poor guy, he's lived with dad the whole time, just as you have, and so he needs to know how to get approval too, and I guess he got some approval from dad for trying to pressure you into resuming the marriage. And of course they blame you. They're in cahoots. As you only mentioned one son, maybe you only had one child, and therefore a same-sex bond occurred between father and son, and that's unfortunate. So you see, your son was as cold as a winter breeze until you reluctantly considered a reconciliation. Sure, wouldn't that make a hijackal's heart warm just for a moment? I'm going to get my way. I got you to do what I want you to do. Yippee for me. Well, maybe you had good reasons for doing that. Maybe you wanted to please. Maybe you were uncertain about your decision and you needed to try again. However, it was absolutely wrong for your son to be part of that equation. And I hope that he has been told that that's not his part. It's not his marriage. Yes, it's his family. And yes, he has opinions about it. But it's not his relationship with It's your relationship with your husband, and your son should stay out of it. So when somebody sets a boundary, as you say you did, and someone else bulldozes through it, that's a good indication that they simply don't care about you. They don't respect you. They're not listening to you. They don't care what you want or need or think or feel. They are all about them. And so they wanted what they wanted. They wanted the family to look the way it had always looked. If you had a hijackal husband, he probably was kind of concerned that now to the outside world, his family wouldn't look as good as it did before. And he didn't want that because that might have some kind of reflection on him. So he decided that a reconciliation was a good idea so everything would look good. So your last question is, what can I do to stand firm and regain self-respect considering my son's disapproval of me? Well, every now and again, everybody listen to this, every now and again you're going to have to own this saying, what other people think of me is none of my business. You know, I did a video recently on my Facebook page, Relationship Help Doctor, and you can see it there, and it's on what hijackals think of me as none of my business. So you may want to watch that one, and it's also on my YouTube channel, which is called For Relationship Help. So yes, you want your son's approval of you. Well, the only way that you're going to get that is to do what he wants. And what he wants is to do whatever it is that makes his father happy, and so that he and his father can be bonded. And you know that that's not something that you're interested in entertaining. So unfortunately, you may have to stick to that idea that what other people think of me is none of my business, including my son and my about-to-be ex-husband. I know it's a tough one because one of the ways that we get into situations and into marriages and relationships with hijackals is because we care what they think about us. But it's very, very freeing. And I don't mean that we don't care about other people. I said we don't care what they think about us. We care more about what we think of us. So important that our opinion of ourselves, that we're living up to our values, our vision for our life, we're living within our beliefs, and we're living our goals and purposes and missions, not other people's. That we're playing on our own team and we're our own best cheerleaders. This is really important. So to stand firm and regain self-respect, live your life according to your standards, according to what you believe, according to what you value, going in the direction of what you want. So that when you look in the mirror in the morning, you like who you see. A person who is not unduly bending to the whims and wishes of others. A person who says, I have value. I love, respect, and approve of myself just the way I am. And I'm getting stronger every day. And of course, get some help. I always say that it's not because that's what I do for a living. It's because I understand the value of what I do for a living. I have been through all this myself. I have